people think that it's all about growing your numbers. It's a glorified way of positioning marketing, data-driven marketing. Things like these are being used, but I think what I'm going to talk about today is that growth is not just that. So I'll go through some of my slides, which I don't know if you can see my slides. Just a minute. Yeah. So the agenda for today is that I'll talk about uh, growth as a culture. How does really you inculcate that habit of growth in your organization, and then we'll also talk about some of the things which I have done. So, for example, I have managed so far around 25 apps in last 4 years, starting from Paytm. For 2 years, I was with Paytm when Paytm was just growing up. It was a small setup. It was a small app, and how we grew initially from 100,000 installs to just a minute. Yeah. Okay. So I was talking about stuff which I did in last 4 years. So hopefully I'll be able to share some of my learnings with you. So I hope you guys can see my screen, which has the presentation. So yeah. So okay, I think you guys already have my introduction. So and I've briefly told you what I've been doing. So last 16 years, I'm in this industry, trying to try to understand, learn every day. In fact, for the last 14 years, I've been in the mobile space, starting with building mobile games. As way back in 2006-7, when we started working on J2ME Java games for Nokia phones. So I've been always fascinated by that small screen, and always really thought that that screen one day would explode, and market will grow, and that is happening today. So thankfully, today we are seeing the explosion of smartphones, and people are actually actively using smartphones to their full capability, which is great for startups, great for any company that is trying to build for mobile screens. Yeah. So all right. So I think, like I mentioned initially, if people think that growth hacking, you can actually overnight find some magical formula to succeed, then I think they are in for a shock, because growth hacking is actually, in my opinion, is slightly overrated. People think that there's some magical formula involved. There's no magical formula. It's basically, like I mentioned, it's a common sense backed by some data analytics, and of course, your good attention to detailing, because you look at every single interaction that you have with the user, every single thing that you talk to users about, and try and optimize that looking at data, and just be in the user's shoes, try and think from their point of view. I think most of the answers you'll get once you start wearing users' shoes, once you get into their shoes, and try and create personas of the kind of user profiles you have. Right. Before I get into some of the growth strategies and ideas, I thought it'd be important for us to understand what's the ecosystem looks like today, and what are the growth opportunities that lies in front of us. It is India specific next 2 slides, so I'll talk about numbers, and I believe that most of you would be interested in knowing where is India going, and what are the current numbers, and how can you really build for this huge mobile economy. Right. So if you look at the competition today in Play Store and App Store, it's huge. There are about 2.2 million apps which are live on Play Store, roughly 2 million apps on iOS. So if you launch your app today, you're technically competing with 2 million apps, right? So that's the competition you're looking at. Obviously, not all apps are equally good, but having said that, once you go live, user still has to discover you among those 2 million apps. Right? So you have a task cut out the day you go live, or even if you're already live. It's not easy for a user to find among all these millions of apps. Another interesting data which I would like to share with you is that, and this is a global data, in May 2016, overall 15 billion apps were downloaded. So that's the amount of downloads happening all over the world. And if you look at India specifically, India alone downloaded 870 million apps. So that's staggering, the kind of downloads that are happening every month. and that is just May data. So you can imagine, throughout the year, the number of downloads that Indians do. Obviously, we can debate about the quality of this install, because there are a lot of people who are still trying out, people who are buying new phones, they're just trying different apps. So because India is adding 5 million new smartphones every month, so there are a lot of trials happening. So that could lead to such high number, but still it's still a very, very huge number. So if you think about it, it's actually almost 5% of almost about 7% of global download numbers. Yeah, so that's one data point. The interesting data point, which I think is slightly debatable, everyone in India talks about Indian internet base of about 400 million. Now, you must have heard those numbers from various sources, various government bodies, various private bodies, with their own vested interest. They come up with numbers like 400 million mobile users, 350 million internet users, and so on and so forth. But I personally believe that that number is highly misleading. And I'll explain you why it is misleading. For example, today, if you actually look at the Facebook numbers, right? So Facebook overall has about 160 million users, right? Monthly active users. Now, I would like to believe that, and similarly, WhatsApp has about 100 million, maybe 110 million monthly active users. So I would like to believe, people who are genuinely interested in the internet, people who are serious about using internet for their day-to-day purpose, would have a Facebook account, right? So someone who doesn't have a Facebook account, there could be two reasons. They are completely anti social networking, so they like to not have their presence there, which I think is a very minuscule number right now. And the second is people are not meaningfully connected, which means they are connected, but they don't have the inclination or the data or the time to actually create their account on Facebook. So if you're talking about 160 million Facebook users, out of which I think there'll be at least 30 to 40 million users who would only come to internet for using Facebook, right? So you would see, you go to small towns and you would see that people are buying small data packs, and they're using the data packs only to access WhatsApp and Facebook. For them, internet is basically Facebook and WhatsApp, because that's where their friends are, and that's where they get their source of entertainment, their source of information, news, everything that they get from there. So they don't technically feel the need to explore the World Wide Web, and they actually stay within WhatsApp, because WhatsApp today, if you look at your WhatsApp, you'll have a lot of groups who are either sharing jokes and news and interesting stuff, and something which you can learn from there. So depending on which groups you follow. So technically, the point I'm trying to make here is that out of 160 million who actually use Facebook, only about 120 million people would actually be using Facebook along with a host of other internet services. So coming back to the slide, if you look at the smartphone base today, there are roughly about 250 million smartphones in India, right? So that's one validated number, because that's based on activated smartphones. The next data point is of these smartphone users, people who have 250 of these 250 million users, roughly about 180 million are connected smartphones, which means there are still 70 million smartphones which do not have any sort of data connection, right? So when I say connected, they have some sort of data connection. They can get onto the internet, right? But out of this 180 million users, there are only about 100 million 3G users. Now, why I specifically picked up 3G here? Because now if you look at user experience today when it comes to browsing or checking apps or just being on the internet, if you're on 2G, you're practically not able to enjoy the real benefit of the internet, right? So if let's say you have to watch a video, listen to music, download a big file or upload something, 2G for all practical purposes is not meant for that. It's basically for a very, very light use case of maybe reading some text, maybe waiting for a website to load, maybe for an app to do one single activity, and then you move out of the internet. So that's why I thought if you're talking about understanding the real internet users, it is important to only talk about 3G users, 3G and 4G users, because anything below than that is kind of, frankly, in a country where even 3G is like very, very bad, it's very patchy. We all know that, in some of the bigger cities, 3G can be as low as 100 kbps. Forget Mbps. So but having said that, still it's still a better way of accessing internet. Now all of these 100 million 3G users, my take is, and this is my take, this is not based on any hard factual data, but I'll explain you the logic for this. Is there are only about 60 million people who are meaningfully connected. Now, what do you mean by meaningfully connected? People who basically, actually are proactively using internet for a lot of things. People who are, using internet for maybe, reading the news or shopping or talking to friends or listening to music or checking their emails, sending documents to others. So basically, all meaningful things that you do on internet. That's what means. People who are genuinely using internet for their day-to-day life and not necessarily using it as a vanity thing. Okay, I have internet and I can go there when they need something. So if you look at the real population of India, which uses which basically means they are available to you for targeting, is actually 60 million and not 400 million. So why I spoke about this number is that whenever we're building or whenever we trying to forecast for a business and startup, we look at a 400 million number, which may or may not be applicable to you, because the kind of services you're building may not actually be applicable to all those 400 million users. So if you're building something today, I think you need to rationalize on the total addressable market which India today offers. All right, so moving forward, some of the so I've told you about the current numbers. I'll also now tell you about how the future looks like for India. So if you look at app downloads, in 2016, India will download 15 billion apps throughout the year, which will grow to about 40 billion apps in 2018. So Indians would end up downloading 40 billion apps, almost about 3.5 billion apps every month. Right, so that's the kind of volume you can expect in India. So because that's because a number of smartphones would grow, number of data connections would grow. So if you look at smartphone in numbers, by the end of this year, we expect 300 million smartphones, growing up to 500 million in next 2 years. So once you have 500 million smartphones, I think then we're talking about huge numbers. Now that's some scale, right? So in next 2 years, we can anticipate next wave of growth coming in for all the startups which are already existing, or all the startups which are likely to come up in next 2 years. Now the biggest number, biggest chart out of this thing is the meaningful connected user, which I just spoke about. So if today we have 60 million, I expect this number to grow to 90 million by the end of this year. But the interesting number is in 2 years, we're looking at 220 million meaningfully connected users, which means people who have at least 1 GB of data, people who are coming into internet daily, people who are actually, very, very aggressively using internet. Now, if you look at this number, this is close to what US internet population is today, right? I mean, so and how big the US internet digital market is. So we're looking at that kind of scale. So once you have genuine 220 million users who are really spending money online and using a lot of data, using videos and consuming a lot of content day in and day out, the whole digital economy will get a fillip. It's the kind of dream come true for an Indian economy where you have 22 crore people available to you for targeting, right? So that's the kind of growth we're looking at. So definitely it's very, very exciting because these are huge numbers. That's I would call that as an exponential growth. So we need to get ready for that. Now the question is, how do we really growth hack? And how do we really make sure that we are among those 40 billion apps or 15 billion apps which India would download this year or maybe next year? So again, coming back to the definition of growth hacking before I proceed further, I think like I mentioned, it's a combination of common sense, your attention to finer things, data analytics, very, very quick iteration and experimentation, because we all make mistakes, we all learn from our users' feedback, we all really look at data once we release the builds. So it's all about how quickly you can iterate, overcome your failures, experiment, and go back to the market. Out of the box thinking, you have to be really, really creative when it comes to growth hacking, because it is not, while it may be data driven, but sometimes it is also gut driven. You have to really take risk and think of ideas which may not be proven by data initially, but you might have to try it out based on your gut feel. And of course, the last but definitely the most important one is the overall user experience, right? So if you're when I say user experience, it's a combination of a lot of things. It's a combination of UI, it's combination of the product offering you use, the overall user flow, and the product and services that you offer, your customer experience, a lot of things. So if you get your user experience right, you've done half of the job, right? So people tend to come back to apps more which have better user experience. People tend to do word of mouth for apps which have better user experience, right? So these are I think 6 things which you need to keep in mind when I go to next slide, and when we talk about specific growth strategies. Okay, so before we talk about the growth strategies, I think I wanted to share the typical consumer life cycle journey, right? It's a very common life cycle journey you must have seen, where you first acquire the users through various means, marketing, social, organic, then try and once they download your app or they come to their website, try and engage them, convert them to something which makes sense to you. So if you're a travel side, you want them to buy a ticket. If you're a product side, or if you're a content side, you want them to either read your article, or if you are a social network, you want them to register and add their friends. So depending on what engagement and conversion means to you, idea is to get them do that after they install the app. And of course, after you do that, the most logical thing is to monetize, right? So that's where you start making money and put that money back into the business so that you can grow it further. Very critical piece. The next one is data analysis, because if you don't analyze data, you don't understand what's happening. You'll not be able to really experiment and do a lot of other small iterations, because data basically helps you take logical decisions. Next thing is serve, which I call as customer service. Now, no matter how good your product is, but if you're not able to serve the customers right, if your customer support or your customer service, or if your overall service is not great, and maybe if you're an e-commerce site, no matter how great the app looks, how good your marketing is, how good your data analysis is, but if you're not able to successfully serve them offline and online, chances are that people will not come back. And last, again, very very crucial piece is win back. Now, what does win back means? It's common practice that every business today faces retention issues, right? So no matter how good your app is, you will lose users, you will have attrition. So the idea of win back is to bring some of those users back, right? Because while you can always look for new users, but it's advisable to keep your existing users happy, keep your inactive users active. If they go inactive, it's your job to make sure that they come back to you. So you need to find interesting, creative ways to win them back, right? So if you look at all these activities, I think one thing that is common between all these activities is that you continue to iterate, build, hack. So if you see this, you just can't hack every stage. You have to continue to experiment. You have to continue to build new things, and that's what leads to so-called growth, right? So it's not just about doing smaller things in every stage. Unless you build and unless you iterate, you don't know what is going to work for you. And there's no magical pill for every business is different, right? So you need to maybe if you're building, let's say, a video app, growth strategy for one video app might be completely different from another video app. So it's up to you how you really study your numbers, study your user behavior, and put that back into the product, and try and experiment with your ideas. Specifically, if you look at these stages, in acquisition, you basically start from users coming into. The idea is, which I'll talk about, that you basically employ a lot of organic / paid acquisition strategies. In the engagement and conversion, you look at plugins and in-app engagement. For monetization, there are ways to monetize using advertising, through in-app purchases, through commerce. If you're a gaming app, then obviously you look at in-app purchases. Analyzing depends on which kind of analytics tool, how you really study your user behavior. And in the win back, it's all about getting your remarketing right. Now, remarketing could be a paid remarketing or organic ways to remarket. So the most important slide of the day, I think, which I'm sure most of you would be interested in seeing, that how do you really drive acquisitions, right? So that's the theme of this presentation. Now, before I get into specific points, I would like to show this broader slide to you. So for driving acquisition, I think it's all about creating the first of all, before you get into specific activities, you need to create a growth culture within your organization. If it's a 2-member smart startup or a 2,000 members big organization, is the growth culture that needs to come into your organization. So every single person, be it product, be it developer, be it your designer or a customer support, or for that matter your admin guy, they need to understand that growth is their collective responsibility. You can't hire a growth manager or a growth guy to do everything for you. It has to come from every individual. They have to all come together. Every decision that is taken in the organization has to be data driven, right? So everything, you sit in a room, you discuss about ideas, look at your data, analyze your data, and see if you can make sense of it. Every single person in your team, even if you're a 2-member team or a 2,000-member team, they should all have their metrics clear. That what are they chasing? So if it is customer support, they should know that they are chasing NPS. If it is product, they should know that they're chasing conversions. If it is developers, they are chasing things like less crashes. If it is a marketing guy, they are chasing app installs with better conversion. So every individual should have very clear metrics defined, and they should be able to track that. If not directly track that, at least they should get access to the metrics which they are chasing, so that they know that are they doing good or not. So that is what I'm talking about. Creating that culture of growth. So it's not about just asking one person to drive growth. Second thing which we at a broad level we all need to focus on is that there are a lot of companies I meet. They start spending money early on Facebook and Google because it's easier to set up their own ads and start spending. But even bigger organization, right? So a lot of companies spend millions of dollars to get app installs. But I think one thing which many of us miss out is to optimize those spends, which means we need to be clear about where our money is going. If we are able to spend, let's say, $1, how much money I'm able to earn by spending that $1. Is it giving me a positive yield, or is it I'm losing money on every new user that is coming to me? So for that, you need to accurately track which channels work for you. So if it is Facebook that works for you, maybe you want to put more money on Facebook. If it is Google, or if it is third-party network or anything else that works for you, or maybe Twitter works for you, you need to really start putting money where you get quality users. And for that, you need to have right tools for that, so that you can track the quality of the incoming users. So that's where I think most make mistake. They don't really track the, and it's not about, and by the way, it's not about just paid marketing. Even if you're doing, if let's say doing a social post which is free of cost, you still need to understand, with that post, how many installs you got, and people who came in through that post, did they stay back? Did they actually, contribute to your app? So for that, you need a good attribution tool which can actually tell you the sources from the users are coming from, and how are they behaving inside the app or inside your product once they come in. The next one, of course, I have a slide on that, which is organic growth. So how do you really drive organic growth? So I'll skip this for now, and in the next slide I'll talk about it in detail. The last thing which I want to talk about here is technology. Now, I think it is very, very important for us to understand that growth can also be driven by good technology. So when I say good technology, it's about how light your app is, how crash-free your app is it consuming less battery? Is it consuming less background data? Are you able to quickly iterate? Let's say if you're let's say, just look at Airbnb and Facebook. They are on React Native, so it's easier for them to roll out releases without really pushing app updates. So that sometimes if you are in experimentative mode, you want to experiment a lot. So if you build everything native and you have to build the ship every time, that may delay the rollout, because people don't upgrade apps that quickly. So maybe a cross-platform development like React Native can maybe help you do a lot of iterations and quick experimentation. So the next thing which I wanted to talk in detail about is how do you really drive organic downloads. So I think Obviously, there's no rocket science here, but these are all things which we all know. There's nothing new that you'll read here, but it's all about how do you really implement it. So, for example, whenever someone is building a new app, or someone is trying to experiment with new features, I think we all undermine the importance of beta testing. Now, for us, the beta testing means that 5 of our developers, or 5 of our friends, or two of the people in your social circle are using the app, and maybe giving you a very basic feedback, right? Now, is that good enough for you to really put that back into the product, and fix the changes which you believe those guys have maybe the kind of feedback that you got from your friends? So the idea is that you need to be very, very serious about your beta rollout. So, for example, since I currently manage an app called Smart App, we launched this app about 9 months back, and we kept the app in beta for about 1.5 months. So when I say we kept the app in beta, we use the Play Store's beta feature, where we actually invited close to 500 people, gave them enough incentive to invite more of their friends. So when we went live with our beta, we had 850 people beta testing our app, and they were sharing. And we don't know those guys, right? So they don't have any obligation to give us a positive feedback, right? So since they took up the responsibility of becoming a beta testers, they actually gave us really, really good feedback, which we put that back into the product. Now, your question would be, how do you really get so many beta users? Now, there are many third-party services. One which I would recommend is betafamily.com. We use betafamily.com pretty aggressively. They have thousands of beta testers who are ready to beta test your app, either for free or for paid. So even if you don't want to pay, there are a lot of users who would like to do it for free. So you should go into those platforms, upload your app there, or sign up beta testers from there, and start getting the constructive feedback from all of them, and start putting that back into the app. Now, after your app is ready, I think the next thing that you need to do, and it's not a one-time activity. Yes, next thing that you need to do is the app store optimization. It's an ongoing thing where it's like SEO for apps, where you continuously need to look at your app category. And I'm talking specifically about B2C. I'm not here handling B2B. So most of my slides would actually appeal to people who are into the B2C space, and they actively target end consumers than businesses. So coming back to App Store optimization, I think App Store optimization, unlike SEO, has a very limited scope. It's not as vast as SEO, because SEO has evolved in the last so many years. But ASO, since it is dependent on the Play Store as well as on the App Store, now it is dependent on their capability. So, for example, if Play Store today cannot support an extensive search query, you can't do much about it, right? So you need to be aware of what all is possible with ASO. So things which are possible with ASO, like you can optimize on 4 or 5 keywords which you think will drive you maximum traffic. So to do that, you need to find a tool which can tell you which keywords work for your competition, right? So if you get that information, you can also optimize for those keywords, or maybe you can try and experiment with keywords which your competition is not exploiting right now. Maybe you think that there are better keywords which can be exploited and which can definitely bring you much higher install. So ASO involves identifying those keywords. Depending on which tool you use, they'll be able to tell you which keywords are popular, which keywords drive more traffic, which keywords are difficult to crack. So once you get the keywords right, you need to look at your app title, app description, your icon, the screenshots, app reviews, the rating. All these things would basically help you get some sort of organic visibility initially when you go out in the market. And as I said, it's an ongoing thing. So it's not you can never settle on one thing. You continuously have to experiment with. And thankfully, Play Store at least allows you to do experiments on ASO. You can actually change your short description, long description. You can change your icon. You can change your screenshots and see what works for you. Depending on what kind of audiences you have, you can try out completely different approaches for different users, and you can do a selective release to some of those users. For example, you can run an experiment of showing different screenshot to two different set of users, and maybe one sort of screenshot talks about your app features in detail, other screenshot is just a fancy looking screenshot. You never know which might work for you. Now, third thing which I think has personally worked for me and would work for everyone: get your app reviewed wherever you can, be it a smaller publication or a blog or a bigger publication, a global blog, anywhere you find people who review apps, just go and submit your app to them. Just get your app. While it may, a positive review will also help you get more download, but it also helps on ASO because it'll actually drive a lot of organic traffic back to your Play Store or an App Store page. Plus, of course, it'll give you a lot of visibility outside as well. Next thing which you can do, again, zero cost, is extensive PR. Now, that's something which again is a skill. There's no set formula to do a PR. Now, when I say PR, it's not about writing a press release and giving it to publications or giving it to blogs and websites. That never works. No one needs that. When I say PR, you need to be innovative about how do you really talk about your app, how do you really talk about your service to the media, and how do you really highlight the problem that you're trying to solve, so that someone who's covering you finds it interesting to talk about that, rather than saying okay, so and so app has released and so app offers feature 1, 2, 3, 4. No one is interested in reading those kind of PR. So you need to be innovative when it comes to PR. Create a story, weave something which users would find interesting. Create great sellable point which people would buy. The next so-called organic growth channel, I think, which is difficult to crack, but I'll tell you how to do that, is to get your app featured on App Store, Play Store or App Store. Now, most, I get a lot of queries from people, how do you really get yourself featured? Because there are, as I mentioned, there are 2 million apps, right? So it's not possible for every app to get featured. The moment you get featured, chances are that your visibility will go up like drastically. And depending on which region and which section of the App Store you get featured, your downloads can increase 20x, 30x in a day, right? So definitely feature is something which everyone of you should be chasing. Now, how do you really get your app featured? It's actually very simple, but having said that, it's not easy for everyone to crack. One thing which you need to do is follow all the best practices. So if you're building for Android, make sure that you follow Android's best practices. If you're building for iOS, make sure you're following all the iOS best practices. When I say best practices, for example, if you're building for Marshmallow, you need to use API 23. You need to make sure that your design follows material design principles. You need to follow that. You need to make sure that your app is lighter. Your app works on 2G. Your app consumes less data, and all those best practices that you would expect from any other app. You should ensure that that is taken care of. So once you've taken care of all the best practices, you need to reach out to the representatives of app stores and Play Store in India. It's easy to find them. It's actually if you talk in your community, or if you want to ping me, I can tell you about it later on. But there are people in India on both on the Google side and the Apple side who can actually look at your app, and if it follows all the best practices, can recommend it to editors at their head office, which if they like, they might come back to you with the changes which they want you to do in their app. And once they're okay with it, they'll sooner or later, maybe in about 4 weeks time, they'll feature you. So that is something we should definitely be chasing. Reach out to people who are responsible for this in India for their respective stores, and they'll be able to help you out. Because end of the day, it's not while you also want your app to be featured, it's even Google and Apple, they're also looking for good apps to be featured, right? They also don't want to show same apps to everyone, right? They also want to hunt good apps. They also want to feature things which are different. So while you are chasing them for app reviews, app feature, they're also chasing developers to unlock such great apps. So it works both ways. Just that you need to find the right people there. Which, as I mentioned, if someone can ping me offline, I can connect you with them. Another organic channel, which I think, if you look at the way Dropbox, Uber, Airbnb, all these bigger giants, they became giants purely based on initial referrals. Now, if you see Uber, grew based on the referral bonus that they used to give. I would get free ride, my friend would get a free ride. Airbnb also followed the same model. In Dropbox, you would get 10 MB, my friend would get 10 MB. So that in-app currency or a real world currency really helped them to grow. Now, it's not just about giving the currency, it's also getting the referral flow right, and it's also getting the experience right. So referral, if implemented well, can definitely work for, it definitely works for actually, all sort of apps. It's just that you need to get the flow right, you need to get the technology right, you need to get your, attribution right for that, which also, of course, linked to word of mouth, right? So if you have a, good referral policy, or if you have a good product, you need to enable word of mouth. You need to make it easier for people to talk about your app with their friends. They may like to share it on WhatsApp, they may like to share it on Twitter or Facebook. You should make it easier for them to talk about your app and share it across different media. Another thing which you need to do, widely distribute your app. Now, I think there's a common understanding that in India, Play Store is the only app store which is worth uploading your app for. But you'll be surprised that 30% of the apps in India are downloaded from non-Play Store channels. So, which means not everyone comes to Play Store and download apps. So if you are not uploading your app on other app stores, so other app store includes 9apps, UC Store, Mobango, Catjar, and there are tons of them. There are at least 15 such stores. You need to make sure that your app is available everywhere the user goes, because you don't know how will user discover your app. Maybe they are comfortable browsing 9apps. 9apps, which is a very popular alternative app store in India. They have about 60 million MAUs. Because they go to other app stores to discover something which is not available on Play Store, so they might even discover your app. So if you are not available on other app stores, then you're definitely missing out on a 30% additional traffic. And last, again, social media, use it to your full benefit. Be active on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Reddit, Product Hunt, Medium, wherever your social channels are. Just make sure you leverage them really well, because if you get your social strategy right, if you get you write the right blog, you distribute your blog to the right places, you initiate right discussions, you go to Quora, you go to Reddit, you involve the right community, you would get that initial mass or initial set of users who can then in turn use your referral, use word of mouth, who can then in turn help you do app reviews. So everything is linked, right? So if you get all these things together, chances are that you'll be able to hit, you'll be able to take off really quickly initially, and once, and the underlying fact is, I'm assuming your product is really good. If your product is good and you got everything else right, all these 8 points right, then sky's the limit. Then you're off, and if any of this clicks, maybe your referral really works, or your beta rollout becomes really popular, people are excited to sign up, or your ASO strategy has worked for you. So you just need to make sure that you keep at it, continue to like I mentioned, continue to iterate, continue to do a lot of experimentation, and focus on these 7 or 8 points to make sure that you get your first set of organic users. And once you start getting organic users, then obviously you can experiment with bit of marketing, you can experiment with bit of paid channels as well. But I think as a best practice, never spend money before you get your first 10,000 or first 20,000 users, right? So that if you can't get first 10,000 users, no matter which app it is, without spending even a single dollar, then there's some problem with your product itself, right? So that's a great sign that your product is not appealing to the users. Maybe you'll get good indication from the app reviews that is being written, the rating that you are getting. So these are early signs which will help you decide that if your app is ready for that marketing blitz or not. So when I say marketing blitz, it could be you spending 500 rupees a day, and some richer startups can spend 5 lakh rupees a day, but you should only hit marketing when all other factors are looking good. All right, so moving on, I think we've spoken about acquisition, which I think was the theme, but the most important thing which I would stress upon, see, if acquisition is equal to survival, because if you don't acquire, you're not able to survive. If you have to really win, it is the retention that plays the most important role. Now, if you look at the average of all the apps worldwide, 80% users are lost on day one. So people install your app, or they go, 20% would stay back, 80% would go inactive. So it is like within first 24 to 48 hours, the kind of moves you make will decide, if your app has a long-term hook or not. So I'll, briefly talk about things that you can do to engage and retain. I think one thing which you need to definitely look at is your onboarding flow. Just make sure that there are no logins upfront, there are no lengthy tutorials upfront, or something which really stops the user from experiencing the product. Right. So that is something which you need to obviously take care of, so that when someone downloads your app, they're straight away into the action rather than going through your lengthy onboarding process. Try and avoid login if it is possible. Try and see if you can give them the real snapshot of the real use case of your app within the first screen itself, so they don't have to really uncover or learn later on, because like I mentioned, most of them would not even open your app second time. Is the first instance that you have to win them. When it comes to the next point, I think technology I've already mentioned. You need to make sure your app is not crashing. It is lighter to work on. It's consuming less battery and stuff like that. Overall UX, if your UX is great, chances are your retention will be higher. Personalization. Now, when I say personalization, it is about, without asking the user, try and see if you can customize the app experience for the user. So use all the capability your Android or iOS phone offers, be it location or be it access to the right permissions, and you see if you can personalize the experience for the user, and make sure that that person feels comfortable with the app. For example, just to give you an idea, if I'm actually coming to a music app, and I have my first album was let's say Coldplay, I would rather show more English music to that person than maybe Bollywood music, because someone who likes Coldplay, chances are that they would prefer similar sort of music. I'm not saying completely eliminate other music, because you never know, I might have varied interest, but at least with every click that user makes, every song, within 5 to 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, you can understand you can create a broad persona of that user. And that's what I'm saying, personalization. You try and readjust the layout of all the albums that are on homepage, and see if you can convince that user to listen to more music. Another point is marketing. Now, like I mentioned, remarketing, right? So if you have users who came to your app and then they exited and they forgot about it, I think remarketing works, but then that remarketing should only be used when you, like I mentioned, you hit a scale where you are confident that by spending money you will be able to extract that money back from the users. Next point is communication. Now today you have so many channels you can talk to the users, right? Push notifications, in-app notifications, email, SMS. You need to have a very, very clear communication strategy. When I say clear communication strategy, it should be very clearly defined that how do you really want to reach out to the user, how not to really spam the user. Just make sure that use the channels really, really effectively. Use it conservatively. Don't really over communicate. Don't under communicate. Do not use wrong channels at wrong time. For example, you can't send push at 12 o'clock in the night. You can send in-app at 1 o'clock in the night. You can send email at you can send email early morning, but you can't send a push notification early morning. You can send SMS early morning, but you can't send SMS at 12 o'clock. So you need to, and plus what content goes into that, right? So for example, if you want to use SMS as a channel, just make sure the content that goes there, where you want people to, even if they see that content after 2 hours, 3 hours, it is fine. Push notification, something which is urgent, which you want them to look at urgently, is something which they need to you need to decide that needs to go in push. Email is where you need to talk in detail about the thing that you're offering, then choose email as a communication tool. So the point I'm trying to make here is that depending on how you really want to communicate with the user, use the right channels at the right time. The last point for retention engagement is your net promoter score, which is directly linked to the customer service or customers, what customers think about you. So I think the starting point there would be have a great customer support. No matter if you're a single person or you're a 20-member team, every one of you should actually become a customer support person, because they are writing reviews to you, they are writing emails to you, they are tweeting about you, they're putting a Facebook post. Just make sure that you reply to each and every customer, try and understand their issues, try and help them. Just try and make sure that customers feel comfortable talking to you, and try and always rule in favor of the customer, because that would always give you benefit in the long run. I'll skip this. All right. Now another thing which I keep coming across, how do you really monetize, right? So now there's no, again, when it comes to monetization, I think I briefly spoke about there are three ways to monetize. You can do advertising, you can do in-app purchases like games and all, or you can do commerce. You sell products. What I'm going to talk about here is that, because it's a very broad subject, it's not possible to be covered in this presentation. So what I'm going to talk about, I'll give you one case study on the product which I am working on. It's basically called Smart App. We launched the app about 4 months back, and in the first 2 months we made $50,000 without spending even a single dollar. So I'll tell you how we did that. So that will give you an idea on things you might need to look at when you're building or trying to monetize your app. So when we went live, we went aggressively on Product Hunt. We became #1 at launch on Product Hunt, and that was possible because we tagged all our friends. I shamelessly reached out to everybody I could through Twitter, Facebook, email, chats, phone, WhatsApp, and asked them to afford us, review the product at Product Hunt, and leave us comments. And as a result, on that day alone, we made $2,000. Day one of our app, we made $2,000 because it was a paid app. A lot of people downloaded the app. They paid for the app because it was a global app, so it was easier for us to make money there. And that gave us a good starting point, right? And fortunately for us, since we've been talking to Apple for like 1 month prior to the app release, we were in beta. We shared our beta release with the Apple representatives in India. So they were able to actually, they actually liked the product, and they were able to recommend it to editors. And somehow the timing really worked for us, that they featured on the day of launch itself. So Product Hunt and featured by Apple really helped us get that initial spike going. And another thing which we were very clear from day one, since it's a global app, we were focusing on internationalization and localization. Our app is available in 9 languages, all popular languages: Spanish, Portuguese, German, French, Chinese, Japanese, Italian, German, and of course English. We had to make sure that since we're launching global app, we need to be compliant with all the so for example, the kind of language that you're using, the kind of layout that you're using. For example, in Japanese or in Chinese, the layout may look completely different. So you need to make sure your layout is able to accommodate that kind of languages. So if you're talking about Hebrew, it is written from right to left. So your UI should be able to take that into account. So those are things which you need to incorporate at the coding level itself, so that when you're launching the app tomorrow and you're adding a new language, suddenly something comes up where you find your app is not compatible. So we made sure that from a day we launch, our app is compatible across all languages, all local. So not just languages, things like since our app basically looks at tracking Wi-Fi data, we had to make sure what kind of terminologies are being used in each country, right? So if I use data pack here, some country uses data recharge as a terminology. Some country uses 3G recharge or a Wi-Fi pack. It all depends on what kind of terminologies are popular. So you need to make sure that you use those terminologies in your app. Another thing that we did, interestingly, was we did a lot of tweaks with the pricing. We kept the app at $2, brought it down to $1, made it free for a week, and then again raised it to $2. The idea was to understand, at what price point we were able to maximize the revenues that come into you. Right. So another thing that helped us, I think I spoke about in the previous slide, app reviews. So we basically wrote to almost 40 to 50 publications before we went live, submitted all the material, and thankfully out of those 40-50, 3 or 4 actually reviewed us, and that 3 or 4 reviews led to multiple other picking it up. So app review is something which I think worked for us in a very positive way. Point number 7 is something which I think I keep telling everyone. While everything else is an afterthought, one one thing which you need to make sure is that build an app that just works. So I think we were able to build an app which was very simple in offering what exactly the positioning of the app was, and people were able to find that app useful. And app just worked, right? And there are no frills in the app. It just served the purpose for which it was built. And again, I think the last thing, and at the cost of repeating it, it was extremely low on resources. When I say extremely low on resources, users really appreciate when your app is consuming less battery, app is consuming less permissions, app is consuming less space on the device. It's not heavy on the resources, it's not heavy on the CPU. All these things matter. It really helps people grow that trust in your app's favor. Right, so that's how I think led to the success of this app, and even today we are making $1,000 every day without really spending even a single rupee on marketing. I think I'll skip this. So yeah, that's pretty much I had, and I think we are also running out of time. So is there any question? I think I can see the question, and I can maybe pick that up.
Yeah. Thanks, Deepak. So if you have any questions, attendees can post it on the chat box. So maybe start with one question from Mr. Adel. So could you please explain the toothbrush use case mentioned in driving acquisition slide?
Right. Okay. So as the name suggests, you use your toothbrush daily, right? I mean, it's like a habit. So what kind of thing that you should build in your product which prompts your user to come to your app on a daily basis? If not daily, maybe once in 2 days, or maybe bi-weekly. You need to build that one unique use case which compares the user to user app, because especially the kind of competition we have in the app space, out of sight, out of mind. If they don't really open your app once in 2 days or once in 3 days, chances are that they'll soon forget about your app. They'll find another new shiny app and uninstall your app. So when I say product toothbrush use case, it is about finding that one single reason why people should come to you frequently.
All right, so we have one more question from Mr. Hasif Pasha. So it says, is it possible to push an update version without user action? So I think more to do with technicality of the app.
No, I see. I didn't understand the question.
So probably, so maybe we can take it offline. So
yeah, I can share my email ID. I mean, you can share my email ID with them. They can write to me. Yeah, I think that'll be easier, because writing an email, I can actually have a conversation with them and understand their question.
yeah, that should be great. And so I'm just seeing if any more questions are coming up. So there's one question.
I would rather prefer, because I think we're running out of time. I have another engagement. So if you can share my email ID with them, I think it will be easier for me to address them through.
Yeah, that's great. So anyway, so we have a feedback email going on. So we'll take questions from any of the attendees if you have, and we can pass it down to Mr. Deepak. So Deepak, thanks for your time. The great insights. It's really a thought-provoking presentation for all of us, how to growth hack on our products. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you the attendees on the call taking time from your busy schedule and attending the webinar from Product Innovation Academy. So just a quick wrap up on what Product Innovation Academy does. So we are a 2-year-old organization, basically an organization founded by industry practitioners for practitioners actually. So people from various industry backgrounds, expertise, they've come together, started this organization. We work on a framework called Design-Led Innovation, where we offer 3 key workshops to working professionals, that is on design thinking, product management, and UX. You can find more details about the workshop. If you think it's of value to help you accelerate your careers, you can take a look at it. Also, I mean, in future, we'll be having Mr. Deepak Award. He is also one of our experts on the Academic Council, contributing to various workshop content, and there will be more workshops coming from his side on growth hacking as well. You can follow our website and also our newsletter. You'll keep hearing from us. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.